One of the primary reasons for implementing a network is to share data. Windows 7, like all Microsoft operating systems, has the capacity to share data as well. In fact, it has the same capabilities for sharing data as Windows Server, with the exception that Windows Server can handle many more concurrent connections. In this chapter, you will learn about creating network shares and in the process explore the following topics: planning for file sharing, creating file shares, understanding NTFS and share permissions, and sharing printers. A local area network, or LAN, is a group of devices connected using high-speed connections and sharing a locally managed network infrastructure. When you're building a LAN, you use specific hardware devices to allow for communications on your network. These devices include hubs, switches, and routers. Together they make up the network infrastructure, or the internal building blocks that allow the network to function. TCP/IP is the most commonly used network protocol suite today. It is the protocol suite used to communicate on the internet, and it is the default protocol suite used on Windows computers. It is called a suite of protocols because it consists of multiple protocols for communications. Some of those protocols include the Transmission Control Protocol, or TCP. This sends data without confirmation and a connection. The User Datagram Protocol, or UDP, sends data without confirmation or a connection. The IP, or Internet Protocol, provides networking layer functions and utilizes addresses such as that represented here, which is called dotted decimal notation. When it comes to IP addresses, there are various types. One of those types is the IP version 4. That's a 32-bit address which provides approximately 4 billion addresses. It's divided into public and private addresses. Public addresses are routable on the internet, where private addresses do not route out on the internet. Private addresses can be identified by their starting of their first octet. In this case, 10. Whatever would be a private address, or 169 or 172.16 through 172.31 and 192.168. There's another type of IP4 address called a PIPA, which stands for Automatic Private IP Addressing. Whenever you see an address that starts with 169.254, you know you have a PIPA going on, which allows machines to communicate on the same network but will not go out on the internet. IP version 6 consists of 128 bits. That's approximately 369 followed by 36 zeros. That's a lot of addresses. It's represented in hexadecimal. The 3FFE address here would be a public address. The FE80 would be a private address. There's something called DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, which provides your computer automatically with an IP address and a default gateway to get out on the internet. The good news is that IP version 6 for most part is self-configuring with the exception of routers, and you will rarely have to enter one of these long IP version 6 addresses into a Windows 7 computer's configuration. Windows 7 can work with 3 different network types, that is a workgroup, a home group, and a domain. You'll be reading more about those in the chapter. Some of the characteristics of a workgroup include they're not password protected. Each computer has a local set of user accounts. Only users with accounts in the target computer can access resources on that target computer through their workgroup. All computers are peers, indicating that no single computer has control of the others. All computers are on the same LAN subnet, and while there is no limit to the number of computers that can participate in a workgroup, Microsoft recommends connecting no more than 20 computers this way. Another type of network a Windows 7 machine can participate in is a home group. They're password protected. Computers participating in a home group can easily share data with other people without a need for complex permission screens. Home group computers must also be part of a work group if they are not joined to a domain. And domain-joined computers may access resources in a home group, but they cannot share their libraries or printers on the home group. In a large corporation, they're going to be utilizing an enterprise environment, and that's going to involve a domain. Domains require access to an administrative account to join to and participate in the network. Domains require a dedicated server for account management and authentication processes. That's called Active Directory Domain Services. Only those with a user account in the domain can log on to a domain-joined computer. Domains can support thousands of computers, and domains allow computers to be on different LAN subnets. And domains provide centralized management and configuration options for the domain clients through the use of group policy and logon scripts. So it provides in an enterprise environment a centralized administration of all your Windows 7 machines. To configure the workgroup name on a Windows 7 computer, follow this procedure. Click Start, right-click on Computer and select Properties. In the System Control Panel page, scroll down if necessary and click Change Settings in the Computer Name, Domain, and Workgroup Settings section as shown in the figure. In the System Properties dialog, click the Change button in the Computer Name, Domain, Changes dialog. Enter the desired workgroup name in the Workgroup field as shown in the figure and click OK. When Windows 7 is first installed and connects to a network, you will be asked about the network type to which you are connected. This figure shows the dialog used to select the network type. You can select between a home network, a work network, and a public network. This selection automatically affects your Windows firewall to provide additional protection. If you choose the home network option and a home group does not exist on your network, you will be prompted to create one. If you choose the home network option and a home group does exist, you will be asked if you wish to join the existing home group or create a new one. This figure shows the screen that is displayed when no existing home group is detected after selecting home network in the Set Network Location dialog box. Notice that you can select to share your libraries, documents, pictures, music, and videos, and printers. When you create a home group, you'll be given a password to use. Use this password to add other computers to your home group. Before you can access files and printers located on other computers in your home group, add those computers to your home group. You will need this password, and every home group has a unique password. Windows 7 supports 3 network share types: public shares, basic shares, and advanced shares. The first step in file sharing is determining the type of share you need to create. You will read about these network share types in the chapter. When you need to share data with specific people, you will create a basic or advanced share. To create a basic share, using Explorer, browse to the location of the folder you wish to share. Right-click on the target folder and select Share with a Specific People. In the File Sharing dialog shown in the figure, choose the people or group. After adding the people or groups, click the Permission Level option to choose among the available permissions, and then click Share to create the basic shares, with which you wish to share the content, and click Add. When you need to have fine control over the permissions and settings for the share, you will need to use Advanced Sharing. To enable Advanced Sharing, do the following. Open Explorer, click Organize a Folder and Search Options, select the View tab, and deselect Use Sharing Wizard Recommended as shown in the figure, and click OK. When you have created shares on your network, you may want to map drives to these shares for easier access. Drives can be mapped in the GUI or from the Windows command prompt. To map a drive, you will need to either browse to the location on the network and then map it using the known Universal Naming Convention or UNC path. The UNC path consists of 2 components, the computer name and the share name. Here we have 2 screenshots. The one in the back is the GUI way to map a network drive. The one in the front is the command that you would use from the command prompt to map a network drive. The command is net space use space k:, which is the new drive letter, followed by the UNC. Authentication should not be confused with authorization. Authentication can be defined as proving a person or object is who or what he or it claims to be. Authorization is defined as granting access to a resource by a person or object. Authorization assumes that the identity has been authenticated. If authentication can be spoofed or impersonated, authorization schemes fail. You can see why authentication is such an integral part of network and information security. When an attacker breaks your authentication system so that he is seen as an authenticated user, the authorization becomes irrelevant. Authentication must be strong if the following 3 authentication methods are common. Something you know, for example, a password, or a personal identification number. Something you have, for example, a smart key or a key. Something you are, for example, biometrics such as thumb scanners and retina scanners. Authorization is to serve its purpose. Share permissions are used to control who can access shared folders and the capabilities they will have in those shared folders when accessing the resource across the network connection. These share permissions exist: read, change, and full control. NTFS permissions are defined on the local drive within the computer. The drive must be formatted as NTFS to use these permissions. FAT32 does not support security permissions. NTFS permissions may be explicit or inherited. Explicit permissions are set on an individual folder or file. Inherited permissions are set through the parent object. For example, by default, a file inherits the permissions of the folder in which it is created. Subfolders also inherit the permissions of parent folders. This inheritance can be blocked, but it is the default behavior. NTFS permissions are defined in this table. It is important that you understand the difference between user rights and user permissions. User rights should not be confused with permissions. Permissions are granted on objects to allow the user to access those objects with different levels of capabilities. Rights are not granted on objects, but rather on actions. For example, a user may be given the right to change the system time. Without this right, the user cannot change the time on the system. By default, only administrators can change the system time, but users can change the time zone in newer versions of the Windows operating systems. Another example is the right to shut down the system. By default, all users can shut down the system if they are logged on locally. These rights are managed in group policy using the computer configuration, Windows settings, security settings, local policies, and users' rights assignment mode. If you have a printer connected to your Windows 7 computer, you can easily share the printer so that other users can print to it. Check Share this printer and provide a share name as shown in the figure. The following permissions are available for printer shares. Print. Users with this permission can print to the printer, but they cannot perform any other management level actions. Manage this printer. Users with this permission can rename, delete, share, and choose preferences for the printer. They can manage printer permissions as well. Manage documents. Users with this permission can manage print jobs for the printer. They can pause and restart print jobs, and they can also delete print jobs. Special permissions. Users with this permission can change the owner of the printer. The owner can do anything with the printer, and only administrators are typically given this ability. In this chapter, you'll be learning more about planning for file sharing, creating file shares, understanding NTFS and share permissions, and sharing printers.